Picture this for a moment. You wake up tomorrow morning, and as you scroll through your device, something feels different. The people around you, your friends, your family, your colleagues, they're all speaking, but nobody's really thinking. They're repeating, they're echoing, they're consuming information like food at a buffet, never stopping to ask where it came from or whether it's nourishing them. This isn't a dystopian fantasy. This is happening right now. We're living through what might be the greatest intellectual crisis of our time, not because we lack intelligence, but because we've collectively forgotten how to use it. The capacity for independent thought, for genuine inquiry, for the kind of deep reflection that once defined what it meant to be human, is vanishing before our eyes. And the terrifying part? Most people don't even notice it's gone. In the next 25 minutes, we're going to explore something that philosophers, neuroscientists, and cultural critics are beginning to call the crisis of cognition, a phenomenon where entire populations surrender their mental autonomy without ever realizing they had something to lose. We'll uncover the hidden mechanisms that have replaced thinking with reacting, understanding with memorizing, and wisdom with data. And by the end, you'll discover a truth so vital, so urgent, that it could determine whether you remain the author of your own thoughts or become just another voice in someone else's script. But before we go further, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who still values the pursuit of truth. Leave a comment with your honest thoughts, even if they challenge everything I'm about to say, because what you're about to encounter might unsettle you. It might challenge beliefs you've held for years. And that's exactly the point. Let's begin. Here's a question that should disturb you. How much of what you believe did you actually choose to believe? Think about your political views, your moral convictions, your understanding of how the world works. How many of those ideas emerged from your own careful examination of evidence? And how many were simply absorbed, picked up from your environment, your upbringing, your social circle, or the content that an algorithm decided to show you? The uncomfortable reality is this. Most of us don't think nearly as much as we believe we do. What we call thinking is often just mental automation, our brains running on preset patterns, cognitive shortcuts, and inherited assumptions. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger spent much of his career trying to wake people up to what he called calculative thinking versus meditative thinking. Calculative thinking is what we do most of the time. It's practical, efficient, goal-oriented. It gets things done, but it doesn't question. It doesn't examine. It doesn't wonder. Meditative thinking, by contrast, is the kind of deep contemplation that asks fundamental questions. Not, how do I solve this problem, but why does this problem exist? Not, what should I believe, but how do I know what's true? And here's the crisis. Our entire civilization has optimized for calculative thinking while starving meditative thinking of oxygen. We've built a world that rewards quick answers, instant opinions, and unwavering certainty, while punishing doubt, hesitation, and the admission that something might be too complex for a simple take. Consider how many times per day you're asked to form an opinion on something. A news headline flashes across your screen. A social media post demands your reaction. A colleague asks what you think about the latest controversy. And what do? You respond. Quickly, confidently. But did you think? Or did you simply consult your existing set of beliefs, find the closest match, and output the expected response? The philosopher Hannah Arendt, reflecting on how ordinary people participated in extraordinary evil during the Holocaust, coined a phrase that should haunt us: the banality of evil. Her point wasn't that these people were monsters. It was that they weren't thinking. They were following orders, repeating slogans, conforming to their environment. And in the absence of thought, atrocity became routine. Now, I'm not suggesting that our current crisis is equivalent to that historical horror, but the underlying mechanism, the replacement of thinking with conformity, is the same, and it's operating at a scale that Arendt could never have imagined. Because today, we don't just have social pressure to conform. We have technological systems specifically designed to bypass our capacity for critical thought. Every notification on your phone is engineered to trigger an emotional response before you can engage your rational mind. Every social media platform uses algorithms that show you content designed to confirm what you already believe, creating what legal scholar Cass Sunstein calls echo chambers, spaces where your existing views are constantly reinforced and never genuinely challenged. The result? A population that mistakes exposure to information for understanding, that confuses having opinions with having examined them, that believes consuming content is the same as thinking critically about it. And the most insidious part is how invisible this process is. Because you're still talking, you're still forming sentences, you're still presenting arguments. From the outside, it looks like thinking. But underneath, the gears have stopped turning. Let me give you a concrete example. Think about a controversial topic, any topic where society is divided. Climate change, economic policy, social justice, whatever comes to mind. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you genuinely engaged with the strongest version of the opposing view? Not a strawman, not a caricature, not a social media post from someone you already disagree with, but the actual best argument from the other side, presented by someone intelligent and thoughtful who holds that position. If you're honest, the answer is probably rarely or never. And that's not your fault. The entire information ecosystem is designed to prevent exactly that kind of engagement. But here's what this means. You're forming beliefs about complex issues without ever genuinely understanding the full landscape of ideas. You're drawing conclusions without examining the premises. You're choosing sides without knowing what's actually being debated. This isn't thinking. This is something else entirely. The neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris describes this as sleepwalking through life, moving through the motions of intellectual engagement while never truly waking up to examine the foundations of your own mind. And the stakes couldn't be higher, because when populations stop thinking, they become predictable. And when they become predictable, they become controllable. This brings us to a darker question. Who benefits when you stop thinking for yourself? To understand how we got here, we need to trace the systems that have systematically discouraged independent thought, often in the name of efficiency, progress, and even education itself. Let's start with the place where most of us first learned what thinking means: school. The philosopher and education critic Ivan Illich wrote a controversial book called Deschooling Society, in which he argued that modern education systems don't exist to create thinkers. They exist to create consumers, people who are trained to absorb information passively, follow instructions, and measure their worth by external validation. Think about how education works. From the earliest grades, children learn that there are right answers and wrong answers. They learn that success means memorizing what the teacher says, reproducing it on tests, and never questioning whether what they're being taught is actually true or complete. Curiosity, the natural human drive to ask why, is systematically suppressed. The child who constantly questions is labeled disruptive. The student who challenges the curriculum is seen as difficult. The young person who thinks differently is encouraged to conform. And over 12 to 16 years of this conditioning, something profound happens. We internalize the belief that thinking means remembering what we've been told, that knowledge means accumulation rather than interrogation, that intelligence means having the right answers rather than asking better questions. The educator Paulo Freire called this the banking model of education. Students are treated as empty vessels into which information is deposited. There's no dialogue, no critical engagement, no genuine learning in the deepest sense. And this pattern doesn't end when we graduate. It intensifies. In the workplace, most environments reward compliance over creativity. The employee who follows procedures is valued more than the one who questions whether those procedures make sense. The worker who doesn't rock the boat gets promoted. The one who raises uncomfortable questions gets marginalized. This creates what organizational psychologist Chris Argyris called defensive routines, patterns where organizations punish the very behaviors they claim to value, like innovation and critical thinking, because those behaviors threaten established power structures. But perhaps the most powerful force suppressing independent thought isn't institutional, it's technological. Let me explain how this works. Your brain, for all its remarkable capabilities, is fundamentally lazy. It's designed to conserve energy. And thinking, real, deep, critical thinking, is metabolically expensive. It burns calories, it requires effort, it's uncomfortable. So your brain has evolved countless shortcuts. These shortcuts, called heuristics, allow you to make quick decisions without expending the energy required for thorough analysis. Most of the time, these shortcuts work fine. But they also make you vulnerable to manipulation. Here's where it gets disturbing. Every major technology platform, social media, news aggregators, content recommendation systems, is designed by people who understand these mental shortcuts better than you do. They employ teams of psychologists, neuroscientists, and behavioral economists whose entire job is to bypass your critical thinking. They know that your brain responds to novelty, so they serve you a constant stream of new content. They know that you're drawn to emotional stimuli, so they prioritize content that triggers anger, fear, or outrage. They know that you seek social validation, so they gamify interaction with likes, shares, and comments. And most importantly, they know that you're subject to confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and favor information that confirms what you already believe. So they build algorithms that show you exactly what you want to see, creating a personalized reality bubble where your existing beliefs are constantly validated. The technology scholar Zeynep Tufekci calls this algorithmic manipulation. It's not that these systems are forcing you to believe specific things. It's that they're creating an environment where genuine critical thinking becomes nearly impossible. Because critical thinking requires exposure to ideas that challenge you. It requires sitting with discomfort. It requires the possibility of being wrong. But if every piece of content you encounter is pre-filtered to align with your existing worldview, when do you ever get the chance to truly think? The journalist and author Nicholas Carr explored this in his book, The Shallows, where he examined how internet technology is literally rewiring our brains. He cited neuroscience research showing that the way we consume digital content, skimming, jumping between links, constant multitasking, is making it harder for our brains to engage in deep, sustained, linear thought. The neural pathways associated with deep reading and sustained concentration are weakening. The pathways associated with distraction and rapid task switching are strengthening. We're not just losing the habit of deep thought, we're losing the biological capacity for it. And then there's the sheer volume of information. The economist Herbert Simon observed that in an information-rich world, attention becomes the scarce resource. You're not suffering from information scarcity. You're drowning in information abundance. According to research from the University of California, the average person today consumes roughly 34 gigabytes of information per day. That's the equivalent of reading 174 newspapers every single day. Your brain wasn't designed to process this volume of input. So what does it do? It filters, it simplifies, it takes shortcuts. And in doing so, it stops engaging critically with the content it receives. You're not reading anymore. You're scanning. You're not evaluating. You're sorting. You're not thinking. You're triaging. And in this state of perpetual information overwhelm, something dangerous happens. You become dependent on other people to do your thinking for you. You rely on headlines instead of reading full articles. You trust summaries instead of examining source material. You adopt the conclusions of people you follow on social media without ever checking whether those conclusions are warranted. This is what the philosopher Theodor Adorno called pseudo-individualism, the illusion of independent thought in an environment where all your thoughts are actually being shaped by external forces you don't recognize. But here's the deepest problem. Even when you become aware of these mechanisms, escaping them is extraordinarily difficult. Because these systems aren't just external, they've been internalized. You've been trained over years or decades to seek quick answers, to trust your first instinct, to feel uncomfortable with uncertainty, to equate confidence with correctness. Unlearning these patterns requires something our culture rarely values: intellectual humility, the willingness to say, "I don't know," the courage to sit with confusion, the discipline to research deeply before forming conclusions. And that brings us to perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all. Most people don't actually want to think critically, because critical thinking is hard. It's time-consuming, it's emotionally challenging, and it often leads to conclusions that complicate your life rather than simplify it. The psychologist Solomon Asch demonstrated this in his famous conformity experiments. He showed that when people are placed in groups where everyone else gives an obviously wrong answer, most people will conform to the group rather than trust their own perception. Why? Because being right but alone is more painful than being wrong together. Because social exclusion activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Because humans are tribal animals, and belonging to the tribe has always been more important for survival than being correct. So we surrender our capacity for independent thought, not because we're stupid, but because we're human. And the systems we've built understand this vulnerability and exploit it relentlessly. The question is, now that you know this, what will you do? Let's go deeper into the mechanics of how the mind surrenders its autonomy. Because understanding this isn't just academic, it's the key to breaking free. One of the most powerful concepts in modern psychology is what Daniel Kahneman called cognitive ease. This is the state your brain prefers. When information feels familiar, when processing feels effortless, when everything seems to make sense without requiring much mental energy. Here's the problem. Cognitive ease feels like truth. When something is easy to process, your brain interprets that ease as a signal that the information is probably correct. Conversely, when something is difficult to process, it feels false or suspicious, even if it's actually true. This is why propaganda works. It's why advertising works. It's why repeated exposure to a lie can make it feel true. Your brain is using the wrong metric. It's measuring fluency instead of accuracy. Politicians and marketers have known this for decades. They use simple slogans because simple slogans are easy to process. They repeat messages because repetition creates familiarity. They use confident language because confidence feels like certainty. And your brain, without you consciously realizing it, interprets all these signals as evidence of truth. The philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The fundamental cause of trouble in the modern world is that the stupid are cocksure, while the intelligent are full of doubt." This isn't because intelligent people are actually more uncertain about everything. It's because they're aware of complexity. They recognize the limits of their knowledge. They understand that confidence and correctness are not the same thing. But our culture has inverted this wisdom. We celebrate certainty. We reward people who speak with absolute conviction. We mistake doubt for weakness and nuance for confusion. This creates what psychologists call the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias where people with limited knowledge of a subject overestimate their expertise, while actual experts recognize how much they don't know. Think about how this plays out in public discourse. The person with the loudest, most confident opinion often knows the least about the topic. Meanwhile, the genuine expert is hedging, qualifying, acknowledging complexity, and being ignored because they don't sound as certain. This is the environment we're operating in, an environment where appearing to know is valued more than actually knowing, where having an opinion is more important than having examined it. And this brings us to one of the most dangerous psychological phenomena of our time: motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning is the process by which your brain selects evidence and constructs arguments not to discover truth, but to arrive at the conclusion you already want to reach. You're not reasoning to find out what's correct. You're reasoning to justify what feels right. The psychologist Jonathan Haidt uses a powerful metaphor for this. He says your rational mind is like a rider on an elephant. The elephant is your emotions, your intuitions, your tribal affiliations. The rider is your capacity for logical reasoning. Now, you might think the rider controls the elephant, but the truth is reversed. The elephant decides where to go, and the rider's job is to come up with justifications for why that direction makes sense. In other words, you feel first, then you think. But you experience this process in reverse, believing that your thoughts led to your feelings. This explains so much of human behavior, why people can look at the same evidence and reach opposite conclusions, why intelligent people can hold positions that seem absurd to others, why facts rarely change minds. And here's the final truth: the world needs this from you. Because when populations stop thinking, bad things happen. History is full of examples. Societies that surrendered their capacity for critical thought descended into totalitarianism, genocide, collapse. But it's also full of examples of individuals who thought clearly, who questioned courageously, who spoke truth when truth was dangerous. And those individuals changed the world. You might not change the world, but you can change your corner of it. You can be the person who asks the question others are afraid to ask, who examines the claim others accept uncritically, who thinks when thinking is hard. And by doing so, you give permission to others to do the same. You create a small space of clarity in a fog of confusion. You light a candle in the dark. This is your responsibility, not because anyone demands it of you, but because you're capable of it. You have a mind. That mind can think, and whether it does or doesn't is up to you. So here's my final question. What will you choose? Will you return to comfort, to the easy patterns, to the algorithms that think for you? Or will you commit to the examined life, to the daily practice of thinking clearly, to the courage of questioning deeply? The choice is yours. It always has been. But now you know you're choosing. And that awareness changes everything. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who's still willing to think. Leave a comment with your reflections, not to perform agreement, but to engage honestly. Subscribe if you want more content that challenges rather than comforts. Because we're building something here. Not a movement with slogans and certainties, but a community of people committed to thinking clearly in a world that's forgotten how. And that starts with you. Right now, with this choice. Choose wisely. The future of your mind depends on it.